Yeah, because as a creator who's solely relying on brand deals, I mean, you're basically live betting on like four different things. You're betting on your an industry, basically. So let's
Hmm.
say you're in gaming, you're in, I don't know, some sub niche of gaming. You're betting that that is going to continue to grow and that there aren't going to be other creators who come in and are better than you, who take those advertising dollars. You're also
Hmm.
betting that your engagement's going to increase or at bare minimum stay the same. And then you're betting on your ability to output every day and not change and not give yourself room to change. And that is not a bet I would advise
Yeah,
anybody to make.
it leads to burnout every single time. And a lot of the creators that I was working with when I was doing consulting is they were burnt out and they were coming to me to find some sort of way of stabilizing, income or figuring out what programming with their community. When I say programming, it's like what, with Brittany Broski, you have like the Broski Report and you have her that medieval program that she has where she interviews guests and things like that. Um, and with Hot Ones, that's considered a program. So you kind of have to think for yourself as a community. If you are like the Netflix or the distribution channel of like your given community or topic, like what programming will your community support you with? Even if it's $3, $5, $10 a month, what are they opting into as far as like your programming is concerned? And if you can get them to buy in early on and get 100 people, 200 people, 300 people paying you to produce programming, then you've really got something going. It's like kind of like PBS funded by viewers like you back in the day, where they would do all of these like telethon, like these money raising events so that you could continue PBS programming. I very much view it in the same way, except your own sort of like your own attention graph creating for your own community. And so with like Octonation, if we are like the Netflix of Octopus content, what sort of programming are we creating and what sort of programming can we get our community to buy into so that we can continue that programming in a meaningful way. So it's like Octopedia, the largest, most comprehensive field guide of octopus species online. Are they interested in that? Can I get them to fund that? Interview with an octopus, where Warren travels around and interviews octopuses all over the world and interviews the people that take care of them. Are they going to be interested in that? It's kind of like instead of selling to like these big time executives, you're selling one to many, and you're selling kind of like a ticket or a stake into like your programming. And I feel like that's the future. As kind of like we get more and more decentralized, you have to find that core group of people and get them to believe in your programming and feel like there's a need for it. Um, and they'll start doing it. I've done this time and time again with people that I've worked with, and now they're community-driven institutions where they can create programming and just run it, and they have distribution. And so that's what YouTube is now. And so it's been really fun watching them kind of get really creative and think like, what do I want to create? Not like what eventually can I sell to a big distribution network to finally have made it. Like people are kind of past that point now. And I think the younger creators now are just like, why would I even heard it. I keep bringing up Brittany Broski, but I just listened to her on Colin and Samir. She was like, they were like, would you go on SNL? And she's like, no, I don't really think it's like, whereas before, like comedians or people like would give up everything to have made it. And she was like, I don't think it works for my brand anymore. And I'm just like, that's totally where it's going, is like, like creators turning down like these bigger time media companies because it'll destabilize their community and their community will be like, what are you doing? Like, this doesn't make any sense for
I
you.
mean, we
I feel like
saw
that's,
that like 5 or 10 years ago with big YouTubers trying to do it and then getting huge backlash and their community folding on them.
yeah. I mean, you see that all the time. And like, if you're funded by your community, the last people you want to piss off for taking more money is that community because they're the first people that are going to call it out. Like your community, like with social listening and just kind of listening to how they're talking and what they're talking about, they're the first people to kind of get a sense for if you've changed or not, like what's going on. And so you can choose to either, be like, oh, whatever. Like some people have like a weird relationship with their community where it's kind of like negative or, whatever. I don't personally work with anybody like that, but I understand there are people that have like toxic, relationships with their community and that works for them. But yeah, I just, there's all sorts of different ways to kind of wield communities nowadays.
Yeah, and I think, to your point, what creators have realized too is why would I go work for a company that has a worse business model than they could have on their own? Because if you go work for one of the big 10 entertainment companies, uh, you know, they're never going to pay you what you are worth to them. Otherwise, that is a bad deal for them. And on the community side, the more members of your community, the bigger community is, the less your cost per member is. It just goes down. And while that's true for companies like Disney, they just have so many other expenses and so many other projects. Heck, they run theme parks. They do so many things that have nothing to do with you. And you're going to be subsidizing all of that other stuff if you're any good at what you do. So why not just run it all yourselves, especially when the platforms and the internet just enables that? I mean, it makes perfect sense. You saw this like 10 years before everybody else, but now, myself and others are just starting to figure it out.
Yeah, I saw it with the first time I saw it was when I was working in New York and for a celebrity fashion photographer. And I noticed that the modeling agencies were kind of losing their talent to YouTube and losing their talent to Instagram because they started selling direct to consumer. And I thought, this is the future. Like talent is going to understand that they have something here and they can get with somebody else because they own distribution. So it's like, why not work for yourself? And I remember working in that space and starting to work with certain influencers that were artists, that were fitness influencers, and just going direct to consumer and then being like, why was I ever paying, 30, 40, 50% management fees to get a paycheck by this agency when literally I could have it all? Now they have to learn how to be financially responsible, which a lot of them weren't. But I mean, that's a part of being an adult. And adulting is figuring out, okay, now I need a money manager. Now I need to kind of like understand where all this is going, where my money is. But like again, that's kind of when I saw it, and I thought, okay, this means I can work with anybody that I want, as opposed to kind of like just getting fielded people. I could kind of pick and choose who to bet on and who was doing something in the world that like I actually saw value in. And so I very quickly just started working with people who I wanted to hold a microphone to. Like, what am I really interested in? What communities do I want to hold a microphone to because I think what they're doing in the world is really cool? And how can I build structure around them so that they can continue to do the work that they want to do? And that's when I kind of got scooped up by Meta for a while and started doing consulting with Facebook groups and helping them create more sustainable communities, create sustainable revenue. Because some of these communities had, 2, 3, 5 million people, and they weren't generating any revenue. They were just doing this because they were super passionate about the community and they had full-time jobs. And I was like, wow, you all know that like at any point in time. And they're like, well, we don't want to exploit our communities. And I'm like, you're not exploiting your communities by offering value to them or creating more programming or resources that aren't in existence. And I kind of showed them what I had done, with Octonation and what I'd done with other community leaders. And they're like, oh, wait a minute, like this would be really cool. This would be of extreme value. I'm like, yeah. And so we started, charging some of their community members to create resources that didn't exist, and they loved it. And so they became businesses. So it's been fun to kind of watch that happen.
Love it. Now, fast forward 5 or 10 years in the future, say, all the biggest companies, all the biggest traditional entertainment companies do in the ballpark of like, $100 billion a year in revenue. Let's
Uh,
ballpark at that.